Ladies and gentlemen, I am Pronogo bringing you another CMBW castover. This one is live. We are dealing with none other than Keyan up against Solstice. This is the very first time Solstice will be on the channel as a man who is being casted over, and also the very first time I think we're seeing a Protoss versus Protoss, so it should be pretty interesting. I feel like Protoss are kind of underrepresented when it comes to the way that everything works out, right? It's a bit strange, actually, that we are not seeing crazy amounts of Protoss. We do have some other witnesses here, and those are me, the Shambler, and Mystery. And I didn't close the other slots, so you get some random AI names as well. So we do have some probe scribe-tism. Should be scribe, of course, not probe. Somebody expunged that word from my vocabulary. And Keyan, as a result of spinning his worker around, is going to be idling that one. Not exactly what he wanted, and he will actually be losing the slap fight there. I unironically am going to update scribes. You are going to see a balance patch update for scribes, because I'm going to give them 15 shields instead of 20, and I'll sink the 5 HP into their hull, because it's actually a little silly how much worker harass they can get out, so that's pretty goofy, but it is what it is, right? So a fast Warden coming out from Keyan. He's not interested in any shenanigans. Did scout the gateway of Solstice, so we do have some more stuff to keep track of as this game goes on. This map is Megalith Empire, mapped by me. I don't think I've made any changes to it since the last time it was on the channel, but I am planning some. For example, this area here. I'm pretty sure we're going to make this unbuildable, because Mystery Meat, he was not successful at the end of the day, but he did kill this bunker and then land his own, which was it was very triggering, considering he was just sniping at my gases, and if I had not planned accordingly, I certainly would have lost because of that, and that's just not intended, not an intended use of this space. I'm actually generally not a fan of peppering unbuildable terrain in a bunch of spots, but I'm starting to see why it's happening, right? Something else that I'd like to muse on here. I did notice that Solstice took a little bit of time to saturate the right mineral fields. That's something that people will figure out. But another thing that I think people are figuring out is the value of scouting. And of course, Keyan's going to scout with his Zealot. But something that you can do if you're, just good enough at the multitasking side is actually, if you queue the order of the scribe a bunch of times, you can, order it to a certain area, right? And because this Dracodon is out, just with a little bit of micro, it should be able to pretty easily dish out some pain to the Zealot. It only needed one more hit to get the kill there, but a little bit slow on the draw, so the Zealot will live to tell another day, tell another tale, live another day, die another day. I don't remember what I was even trying to say there, but that's okay, because the Zealot could actually jump into the bunker if he wanted to. He wouldn't be able to attack, but at least it would be funny. Obviously reserves it. You can actually reserve it even from a worker. I think that's something Keyan said before. So we're going to go for a more economic game here on the side of Solstice. I actually am not aware of how, what their playstyle is really like or anything. Apparently they played against the Shambler. I don't know the status of that game. I would assume Shambler took the dub just because I'm more familiar with Shambler, and he's like an intermediate level skill, right? But at this point, we're not sure. We're not sure. However, that all being said, right, Solstice has had the opportunity to spectate a bunch of replays. For people who don't know, and not even replays, actual live matches, I've been playing a bunch of them. I played against Mesk and Mystery Meat and the Shambler. I think I played one against Keyan, which was very amusing, and that was all earlier today on, I believe, the 6th of February. Yes, that is correct. So you guys, too, can join us if you so desire, and it looks like Keyan desires to join Solstice's units. But, however, the good snipe actually came out onto that Legionnaire. If you only have one Legionnaire, they can't actually make the jump. I was debating whether or not to make a change to that mechanic, because it does feel a little bit lame to require two. But, of course, I think even in this circumstance where the Legionnaire was able to jump to, just its own mark or whatever, I don't know that it would actually make a huge impact in that particular fight. So, as the Shambler is noting, of course, the Legionnaire is currently just the Zealot's little brother, downscaled, of course. It's a little scuffed in some of the frames as well. It doesn't look super elegant, but that's okay. That's a-okay. We do have an Ecclesiast coming out. Keyan wants to keep his units alive a little bit. He has to be a little bit afraid of Solstice target firing the Ecclesiast. Obviously, Dracodons themselves have a whopping 6 range, and that is not as much as the 4 range of the Ecclesiast, right? So you can always check those details by mousing over the little icons down here. We have way more information than Blizzard ever did, so that's always good. And you don't have to memorize, like, Armored as a flag. Isn't that epic? Yeah, we don't have Immortal and Roach and Marauder. But we do have Keyan trying to do his best Marauder impression. Not just the definition of the word, of course, not for anything else in particular. He doesn't actually have any units that can attack air coming up. He is building a Matrix, but I think it's going to be a little late. He's actually going to swap it out for a Warden. Either one would be fine if it were actually finished, but he might have to pull back his Ecclesiast in order to deal with these vassals, and that's assuming they can even really do it. Solstice is probably a little bit puzzled as to the fact that Keyan's even not expanded, and he's actually going to let him have a little bit of time to scout around the map. You know, he's actually giving him time to, you know, consolidate his forces and his base defenses should he desire. I'm not even sure what the Warden placement here is supposed to foible. I guess maybe like a drop or something, but he is in the dark. He doesn't really know what Solstice has, so a fairly low action game so far after the first attacks were rebuffed. And we will see a second pylon as redundancy. Always good to do that as Protoss. They're only 50 minerals and they can save your life. Some of the units here will be ambushed, it looks like, and so caught with his pants down a little bit is none other than Crow number 3. The vassals will reveal themselves, so he will know that there's a little oopsie here, but he's doing a little bit of stalling. His Ardent Authority has come online, but it's going to be a little while until he can get the Positrons out, which are going to deal pretty well against both vassals and anything that really, like, as long as they attack from a decent amount of range, they're going to be hitting some pretty good shots there. So it looks like he wants to relocate his Warden, which is pretty funny. I think that should still work, actually. So hats off to him in that respect. I'm not sure if we're... Yep, look at that. It does work. So he can actually relocate it like Terran, which is hilarious. I'm glad Keyan's really showing some features off here of it. He knows it's a castover, bro. So only a single worker dies. I'm sure Solstice is positively stumped, rather. And so there's no pylon over here, so he actually can't unload it to that. He can unload it a little bit over here, and it should be fine. So that's another worker going down. I don't think it's actually going to get power from that situation, and yeah, Keyan doesn't know it yet. Of course, has to pick it up. We don't have super robust like error handling where it actually says unpowered. In fact, it might not even let him load it now, which is a bit of a meme. Yeah, I'll let him know what's going on. It's all right. He'll figure it out. He does have 2 Positrons that should be able to hold this force at bay, especially with the Warden. It was funny, at the very least, to see what was going on there. So hopefully now he can load it. We'll see. Yeah, there it is. He's got a second envoy, theoretically, for the pylon. He's defensive shuffle of the envoys here, which is just hilarious. And you can see we haven't fully gotten it working insofar as the Warden doesn't always, like, unload in the correct spot. So that's something that, you know, when Veek is back in action, he might be able to do something there. But actually, no scribe kills on this single base. I can't tell the resources yet, but we do see some funny pathing. Only a single pylon in the main powering all 4 production structures for Solstice. That could be capitalized upon. I thought, based on the Envoy, that we would actually be seeing, you know, drops of the Positrons, because you could drop them and then kill a bunch of workers. But at this point, Keyan has to be a little bit paranoid about his front line being damaged. He is getting a Warden to defend against the vassals more permanently, and I guess maybe he's actually going to... he's going to be searching for something. Something along the lines of maybe an opportunity to drop that Warden and Pylon combo. Of course, you can't use your opponent's Pylons. It's not like Creep. We do have a player-specific angle there. We could even make it so that you can't use your opponent's Creep, but we just decided not to because I think it's more interesting if there's a bit more of a difference. Solstice still not seeing any secret base. Doesn't mean it's not there, but we know that it's not there. And the Ardent Authority now might have a little bit more gas in the tank now that the Aquifer is done. So actually, both players have capped gases, and Solstice doing a pretty good job of expanding. So Keyan might be in a little bit of trouble here. I'm not sure if he just underestimated Solstice because this is his first romp with the guy, but in any event, this is he's doing the right thing, right? He can't necessarily bust his opponent, so he's just going to take map control. That Warden will indeed stymie any additional aggro from the vassals. And so those will be cleaned up, not really too much micro. You could have maybe flown them over to, you know, reveal the army a little bit more. But there is only one Warden here, remember, and so if it were to get focused down, that would be bad. A redundancy pylon here, but it's out of range to power this Warden. I think maybe this back one might just barely. Doesn't matter, though. It will be focused down. And the Positrons are out, but they need a little bit more micro. The distances are being closed, and actually these Dracodins are taking a decent amount of damage, too, for Solstice, so this is a bit of a tight fight. We're not 100% sure where... you know, who takes the cake here, but I think with some vassals out, which is an amazing thing to say out loud. Yeah, he's good now because of the vassals, but unironically when they die, they obviously do the powerful enchant there. You know, Solstice could have forced the issue here, and I'm not so sure that he's aware of that. He's actually, yeah, he's forced the hand of Keyan. He hasn't shuffled his Envoy and Warden Pylon combo yet. and that obviously would have potentially helped him hold here. But this redundancy pylon is going to unpower the gateway. There's still one going, and there's the double Legionnaire treatment that should take care of the Dracodon. Unfortunately, the Positron, oh no, it's just barely powered. I'm not even sure if Solstice knows that, but it will finish the unit, and that will be enough to riposte this attack. The Simulacrum getting focused down pretty nicely. Another Simulacrum offering itself up. And now at this point, there are 3 Dracodons and a Scribe who has been waypointed over here. I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but, you know, it's a thing. We do have double Legionnaire coming out. This gateway still got a Dracodon in the queue, so that's 150 minerals. It could be going towards something else. And at this point, the Legionnaires are just trying to buy time, a buffer for the Positron, which hasn't been microed at all, and as a result will end up going down. That was 4 Dracodons, of course, onto the fight. We do have a double... Yeah, okay, he's a little bit tilted because he's not realized the utility of the Positron. And he also had no idea that he was on 1 base against the 2 and the gas base that was just being set up in the south. So a good showing from Solstice nonetheless. And that will conclude game number 1. Shall we see a series? Well, you got to stay tuned to find out. It's game number 2 between Solstice and Keyan. And I was just anding there because I was wondering whether or not Solstice was here because I accidentally started without checking with him. But he was here, and that is epic. And this is Terminus, another map by me. Will we close out on the new map Excelsior? I feel like maybe not because it's a little bit fucked right now, but we'll see. Maybe with these 2 players it would make an entertaining game. I'll ask them if they want to check it out. It's definitely a wild map, and maybe it'll give me something more to talk about. So if you want me to keep talking, if you want me to keep making these videos, then you're in luck, because that's what I'm going to do anyway. But if you also want to support the creation of those videos, then you know where to go, right? You know where to go. Where 3 go? Where 3s go to be fit for a new purpose. This is going to be a very straightforward gateway opener, I believe. It's actually Lattices, so maybe Keyan looking to go back to the old Baelithal strategy in team games, except this is a 1v1, my homie. It's all a question of whether or not Solstice scouts it out ahead of time. I believe he's going for a gateway opener of his own. But, I don't know, we might have some shenanigans from both sides. Oh, goodness. Okay, maybe he likes Sims. Maybe he likes Manifolds. He's starting to harvest gas. That would make me feel like he's going Manifolds. There's 0 gas harvesting happening from Keyan, and a second Lattice going down. He's just going to vassal him to death. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be a very entertaining brawl between these 2 Protoss players. Again, the first PvP game I think we've had a castover of, I'm pretty sure. I said that at the beginning of the first game, but I'm pretty sure that's the case here, you know? That being said, there's always more time to find out exactly how this one's going to go. It will be a manifold, so that's actually very well equipped to deal with any sort of early vassal aggression. This scout's super late. Actually, he doesn't even scout. I just realized. I thought that was going to be Solstice's Scribe, but it's not. So Keyan is in total secrecy here, spamming out the vassals, but the first 2 are obviously not going to do much to a manifold. You need a progressively more, higher number of them to deal with the manifolds until there's a certain magic number that you reach, whereupon at that point, the vassals can stack up too much, right? So, yeah, there you go, manifold revealed, and so that will be the first vassal going down. That basically seals the deal. There's really unlikely you're going to get any frags on the workers as a result of going for a single vassal, right? Like with 2, you can kind of maybe parlay it, although it's going to be very slow. But at that point, a good initial defense. But that's not going to stymie Keyan. You know, he's starting to harvest a little bit of gas. And apparently Shambler already put him through the loop for this one, which is pretty funny. And there are, 4 more vassals on the way. I'm not sure if, the sight range on these is pitiful, right? 5. And as a result, I'm not sure if this manifold was spotted. I assume it was. In fact, there is still 1 in the mineral line, but 5 vassals might be enough to kill it. The next batch being disrupted, yeah, I think that's definitely going to be enough. So he does damage the hull of one of them, but, the manifolds fight are sort of being chased off here at this point. We do have some Sims, which, if they're not focused properly, are definitely going to be a little bit rough. No AoE available to Solstice. If he wants to use his gas for, say, a Matrix, that would help with the multi-targeting, of course. And vassals do really poor damage to static defense. So they are pretty much only used for cheese. A Warden defensively placed to cover the both the production and the Nexus in this case. That's 300 minerals, which is almost an expansion. So Keyan really super dedicated to making the cheese happen, and he is going to fly over the mineral line. Solstice's reaction is a little bit late. We see 3 scribes going down. Maybe we can make it even higher. That's 4. Yep, keep the number going up. The Simulacrum doing not very much damage, so that's 6 scribes in total going down, and only a scant few vassals. I mean, when one of them dies, they actually get faster, right? So this can be a very difficult cheese to sort of follow up on. He is going for an expansion of his own, but now that Simulacrum has been picked off, right, the vassals can be kind of dangerous in aggregate. And you know, he's got a lot of manifolds. He can't step to him, right? Keyan can't actually combat this army at this point, but he's done so much damage. However, he is not expanding. He is still pretty fully all in. He's got 2 manifolds of his own, which is mostly to help with a counterattack, I think. And that's exactly what Solstice is thinking at this point. He's got a bunch of idle scribes. He definitely could be, you know, harvesting a few more minerals, right? We'll see what he decides to do. I think he's really, really intent on, like, using his army and catching them all, but which is unfortunate because he's going to have, like, 4 idle workers pooled up here at this point, and he's not going to be able to bust this by any means, right? He can kite backward and kill the vassals, but that's only really going to enchant the rest of Keyan's army. And so there will be a little bit of kiting here, but I don't think that it's going to be significant. Maybe he gets 1 more vassal. It's not going to be true. And there's just more manifolds building at this point. So he needs to use his army. He needs to use his pending economic advantage. It's going to be a little while. He doesn't have much of an army. He doesn't have any static defense. Vassal production could continue to put him in the ground, and that's exactly what Keyan is going to do. So this is a very tight... This is really funny. This is like the only time I've ever seen a mirror opener for Protoss versus Protoss. So a Warden does go down. That will at least safeguard the lattice and buy some time, right? Like, the main point of static defense is to do damage while your opponent is, like, trying to posture aggressively. And then you can use your own army to augment that, right? And that's what we see time and time again. That's exactly what we saw over here, where obviously Solstice was forced to kite backwards away from the Warden because he didn't want to take any extra damage. So that should be what we see over here. There's going to be an inquiring vassal who has poked his head around just to see what's going on. He might even do a little bit more harassment, but unlikely. It's mostly just a scout, right? If it can be sniped, which it can, before scouting the expansion, then that's a little bit more of an advantage for Solstice, right? Because maybe Keyan just assumes, oh, my opponent doesn't really have anything. I can just walk all over him at this point. So he's going to be building some more vassals for good measure. And there's no tech switch out of it, but I think Keyan is pending that one. No, he ends up going for more gas instead. He does have his own base in the back set up, and that is going to be a gas-intensive base versus the mineral-intensive one that Solstice had. I think that says a lot about sort of what these players are looking for, although it might have just been that Solstice wanted a base that was a little bit more out of the way. Like, maybe you wouldn't scout that with vassals. I mean, you could, but maybe you wouldn't, right? So who knows what the real reasoning was. He's not really harvesting much gas at this point. I think he wants to use manifolds almost like, you know, Shambler would use Hydras or something, right? Is the real meat and potatoes of his army. Maybe he can get a little bit of a front line from some other structure later down the line. And Keyan is admittedly a little bit split. If he doesn't use the vassals and the manifolds in unison, he's not really going to have a good chance at breaking anything that Solstice has, even though the manifold count, I believe, for Keyan is, yeah, it's exactly identical to what Solstice has. It's not quite what we were looking for overall, right? What we're looking for at this point is some way to defend against the incoming hordes, and actually these vassals are desynced, and yep, there's the Warden. It's going to get softened up by the... yeah, okay, all of the units are arriving at this point. So, the forces are scrambling. Solstice really needs to hold on to this one, ideally without losing too many units, right? He is going to... A little bit of a mistake there, target firing the pylon, but it's not going to cost him too much. At this point, the vassals are just being torn apart, but that obviously enchants the army, right? So it's not really the end of the world. I think there were some vassals for Solstice. Indeed, they are going to be waypointed down here and cause some trouble in the expansion. So actually, this could still be an even game. I don't think he has kill pressure on the Nexus, but it might still be enough, right? And these vassals just walked away from the army for 1 second to see if they could do some worker harassment. At the end of the day, the defender's advantage for Solstice is going to come in hot. These units were not actually waypointed, but now they will be. And all he needs to do is park these here and, like, hold position, right? But what he's actually thinking is, oh, there's no base here, but there is. So again, that Nexus will go down for Solstice. That is going to be very different for Keyan, who was producing some units back behind this, but they're already flying across, including a bar guest, right? He has added a rogue gallery. Now, the manifold will be okay against that, but Solstice's army does need to thin the herd here. And it looks like he might not even be successful in that. So actually, before the engagement happens, only a single vassal going down, and the rest of the army is here. This might actually be GG. A gateway being added super late. Vassals seem to have been eviscerated over here because they weren't on hold position. They were dragged away. And it did get some good action here, but that gateway will need to be canceled. And the Warden is also going to get torn apart, I think. Instead, he'll go for the pylon. This is the jugular move against Protoss, and it's exactly what you'd think. It will indeed be the game in favor of Keyan, and we go 1-1, which means we need one more game to settle the score here. Where will we go? Only time will tell. GG. And here's the score screen. That's right, you know we needed one more round here between these two players. It's going to be Keyan versus Solstice, and we are entering into a new map. A silly map, Excelsior. This map is definitely a map that needs a little bit of an introduction here, but of course I can't actually reveal the whole map, which is a bit funny. Solstice is not aware of this map, whereas Keyan has helped me playtest an earlier version of it. He may not be aware of all the changes, but you can kind of see them over here because this area used to be walkable and buildable and stuff, and now it isn't. But yeah, it's a very, very bizarre map, and if you can't understand it based on the minimap alone, then don't worry. But this is actually a 3-player map, not because I intended it to be played in a FFA or a 3-player environment or something, but actually because this is one of the other spawns, and these players didn't end up getting it, right? They ended up getting the horizontal spawns. This is the more balanced of the two possibilities. But if you roll, you know, a mix where somebody is in the middle and somebody else is in one of the other spots, that can definitely change the game. I think this is probably the longer sequence if you spawn horizontally. You can definitely spend a little bit more time away from your opponent. There's a little bit more of a ground rush distance. As a result of that, you have to imagine, oh, okay, well, maybe this will be a more standard game. However, again, we're not really 100% sure what these players are going to go for. An embassy first from Keyan, without scouting the start position of his opponent, is super greedy. He's very lucky that his opponent is opposite him and probably doesn't really know the map, right? He's kind of maybe banking on that. So Keyan has a little bit of an advantage here, right? Solstice is maybe a little bit on the newer side, at least to the PvP games to my knowledge. Maybe he's been grinding out those AI games, you never know. And of course, Keyan himself, you know, he's doing his thing, right? He's played on a version of this map before. Not a huge amount has changed. He's obviously played a little bit, well, I guess a lot of it longer. And as a result, you know, maybe he goes for this hard eco play where he goes the embassy first just to get more scribes. That is a legit thing you can do, especially if you know the race of your opponent. You also know that maybe they're not going to be doing something too crazy. Then that can definitely be beneficial to you. Will be a Drakadin followed by a Cenotaph. This is a general, like, well-rounded play, I would say. I usually see this play being used against Hydras. However, you can also go for Idols if you want something a little bit more fast-moving. And neither player is scouting each other, right? Maybe a Witness will do the trick. That looks like we are going to be seeing a island expansion. That's what I'm guessing based on the embassy. With a secondary pylon for redundancy and a matrix. So Keyan is going to be full turtle mode here. The only question is whether or not it will be punished, because of course you could station a couple of Drakadins here and snipe that matrix, or just snipe the workers from this range. And away he goes to none other than... Wait, where is he going? Oh, is he scouting with the Envoy? I mean, that's kind of bold. It exposes exactly what your build is, right? So, okay, I think maybe he suspected his opponent was actually in the upper mid and wanted to maybe take the other horizontal expo. He doesn't have a scribe in it yet, right? But... that's okay. There's something happening there, right? So he has confirmed Drakadins. We're not sure if he scouted deep enough to see the Cenotaph. There will be an expansion going down for Solstice, a gateway going down for Keyan, and he's not really using the Envoy for it. He's using double Envoy. That's what he's doing. He's attempting to do the ultimate, like, drop a cannon and a pylon and whatever. That's why he's building all the static defense, boys. We figured it out. Okay, he was sort of playing around with that in game number 1. It obviously didn't work out too well for him. And again, he won't really be able to drop anything over here. I think he could maybe fit a pylon, but maybe he can fit a pylon here or something. I'm not sure what the game will actually allow him. I know what the map set is like intended to have versus what else is going on, right? So Zealot here mostly to run interference for any attack, but Solstice seems content to just keep his army at home, which is actually unwittingly a great counter to what Keyan is doing, because Keyan kind of needs to catch you by surprise in this particular case. So he's going to go for the Matrix. This is clearly a ploy to try to snipe a bunch of workers. So you could imagine maybe the pylon here, Matrix here, something to that effect. Unfortunately, all of these units are still going to be here, so We'll have to wait and see what he decides to do. He's sort of twirling around. That is unbuildable terrain, my homie. I think he's trying to cheese it. Okay, well. Well, you know what? It definitely shouldn't work that way. But honestly, dirty bug abusers get what they deserve. And I'll just type an LMAO at that one, because what else can you say? I guess we'll need to fix the fucking unloading of static defense. And, you know, that's a meme. We love memes around here. So, giant army, and by giant I mean like 5 units, is marching across the map. Hey, this is giant in Warcraft 3. So that's like a high population cap army marching away. There was a zealot. I don't know where it went. Is it in a transport, or did it get canceled? The pylon's still in there. Maybe his color is really hard to see or something. No, I think he just canceled the zealot probably. So he's got double Dracodon. He's got wardens, you know? So he can hold against this, right? Aquifer going down, that could get sniped. And actually, I think we can check that ourselves. So transport space of 6 and transport space of 8. But you can't tell how much space... Okay, yeah, so there you go. We've got the info anyway. And so Keyan's actually going to go for another attempt here. There's a question of whether or not there were any defenses employed. But I don't know. Maybe he can go for the natural. He seems to be pathing around in that general vicinity. This is where I built ion cannons against Shambler, never forget. And... there's no expansion here for Keyan once again, so Solstice might have the economic lead. Of course, this is just a meme. Like, the idea that you will actually get fucking cannon dropped. Dude, this must make Mesk so happy. Dude, this is the thumbnail. This has to be the fucking thumbnail. Like, how can you do anything other than that? So, anyway, he's going to go ahead and relocate that. And the army is falling back as a result to try to deal with this. I mean, he could just attack the Warden and soften it up a little bit, but he doesn't even want to do that. Single Dracodon on the way. I mean, Solstice must be getting sassed so fucking hard right now. This is like unimaginably silly. How do you deal with this? How do you respond to this? And the envoys should be able to scarper off with this, but actually they're just going to get owned, so... The one with the pylon will be saved. And you know what? I think at this point Keyan should recognize, hey, I need to get a... did you unload the pylon first? Or load? Because he was aware of that bug from earlier. Although I'm not even really sure if it's a bug. Like, I think maybe you shouldn't be allowed to... You probably shouldn't be allowed to interact with unpowered structures, but I mean, loading and unloading probably doesn't matter as much, right? So he's actually going to unload this pylon over here. Yes, even Protoss can relocate their base, right? Pretty good. He's going to go ahead and rejig his defense here. Cover the this area. Obviously, again, this is like technically a bug / exploit, but... this could be really rough timing. If he moves out all of his Dracodons as an attempt to go up and around, he will be going up against Solstice's army in the south, and that's exactly what we are going to see. This is a little bit rough, right? The Warden will, you know, dissuade this attack, assuming it even comes to that Nexus, but it will be shut down either way. If it comes to the main, it's even more potentially game-ending, right? However, it depends on the timing here. They're going to actually, like, pop up, right? And what is Keyan's response? I think he's just going to go for a base trade. Depending on how much money he has... Okay, he's actually... Okay, this is really good for Keyan. This is like the best course of action that it could have taken. Because now Keyan can use his Dracodons to maybe force a recovery. And it really depends. I think we're about to see a base trade after a cannon drop to settle the score here. A couple of lost Dracodons on this side, especially with the case of that Golem swatting away at them. But the Pylon will go down, and that should give... him a little bit of an advantage. So this Nexus is going down, but this is the wrong choice. Solstice here should just charge forward and try to do what he can to kill off the army, because, or the base rather, because this army, I mean, yeah, his army wins against Keyan's army, but the actual movement is so rough. Now, technically, he's still mining. It's not the end of the world in that aspect, right? And he can start to maybe mount an offensive or try to go for a comeback or something. Automaton Register will get shut down, and now it's just about the production getting chipped away. So not terrible for Solstice after all this, because obviously he will end up cleaning up Keyan's army, and then maybe he can just march on it. But I was really worried for him that maybe Keyan would be able to focus down the Nexus or something, and, you know, at that point, maybe he would have bought enough time, right? I don't think Keyan himself was expecting the army to fight back in this respect, right? He will be going for an extra Drakodin kill. It's not really too crazy, and he's buying more time, which is, you know, about what you can expect, right? Like, if you're Solstice here and you're trying to, like, improve on a very minor thing, you probably just send 2 Drakodins after that one and then take the rest of your army and move them out because you really want to keep adding the pressure. Or you could try to maybe stabilize back into a normal game and then take an expansion. Something to that effect. All of that could happen, but of course the worker queue is kind of limited here, and I'm not sure what his resources are because, again, this is a live game. DF was working on something to fix that, but it's not quite ready, and I'm just smashing all the tables here, so sorry about all that, but that's the ambiance that you get, honestly. All right, so Keyan was not able to expand in a normal fashion, but he can take this base, which of course has 2 geysers, 2 ridges. It will be the middle base, the smiley face, taken by Solstice. He's given him a nose, in fact. Isn't that cute? And it's just Drakodins all day, every day. Obviously, the more rich composition here should result in some pretty cool stuff. And he even has a Cantavis. No, of course, no Envoy to transport it, unlike what Keyan has. But certainly enough. Like, technically, you can, like, fit it in here into these spots or whatever. It's pretty much dead meat to any static defense, which is why I didn't think that this is really that big of a deal. But obviously something that I'm sure the players will complain about if it happens to them. And I do think, actually, I am going to move the horizontal spawns up against the wall here and just rejig this base so that this is like an expansion as opposed to the main. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. So there's a posturing of the army. A land effect is out from a Stargate, which I didn't even register, so that's pretty neat. And double Cantavis now. They're still not with the army, so they are maybe just here to defend. Still no Nexus down over here on this spot, but Keyan, on the other hand, is starting to drop his I was going to say his 3rd base, but obviously he lost his nat, so it's his 2nd base. He's naturally expanding in the upper middle of the map. Makes total sense. And this one is just slowly harvesting minerals from a distance, so, you know. Oh, that's what he was trying to do. He's trying to storm the witness. Oh. Oh. Oh, it's moving back. Oh. 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 What's he going to do? What are you going to do about it? Motherfucker. Does he even know where it is? Oh, I shouldn't select. I didn't do anything. I didn't select anything, guys. I was really wondering why I was hearing storm. Like, there's nothing over here, but it's actually, of course, the embassy. The witness, rather. Another army posturing, confirming there's no base over here. But, of course, does he really know where the main threats are? This force is not going to compete against the number of Drakodins here. Although, I guess the number of Drakodins is actually kind of even. But the land effect could cause some serious problems if it's not focused down. Vassals scavenging around will actually confirm that this base is under construction and nearly complete. Still has not taken a 3rd of his own. Still has not killed the witness. Oh, fuck, I didn't select that. And, of course, the vassal continuing to scout around. So he will actually be stymied in that respect. No, not even killing the scribe, SMH. And just continuing to build up, continuing to do his stuff. He's now decided to pull his army. What is Solstice thinking? What's going on here? Is he going to go all the way around and maybe try to hit this top base? That might be a play. Of course, behind all of this, Keyan is going for a Panoptus-based support wing. This is double gateway going. A very awkward midpoint. There's a lot of units here. I think Solstice probably underrates how powerful his army actually is. He could just end the game, particularly with all of these Cantavises. But also just in general, right? There was some explosion somewhere. Not sure what that was. Maybe, oh, it's probably a vassal going down. Should add corpses for vassals, obviously. Space being a little bit left neglected. There's been a few games for Keyan, right? He's actually going to charge straight into this army if he's not careful. At actually being spaced out pretty well. Cantavis is moving on, so good timing here, and they will indeed be started to be pushed back. The storms can blanket all of these Drakodins, and that will force a retreat. The initial storm comes out. Land effect follow it, you know, just disabling all of this stuff over here, which is pretty funny. Can't disable the spellcasts, although probably should be a thing, but I'm not sure that it is. And so, it also wasn't really over them anyway, right? And so actually his army ended up being a lot more competitive than maybe it should have been as a result of that. And because the Atreus is just sat here, like, just storm this, bro. What are you doing? he's not sure what's going on there. Oh no, Keyan's disabling his own brain. Oh man, dude, what an insane game, honestly. What a goofy game. I agree. I guess Land Effects should probably trade movement speed or something when they enable that. They used to require energy, but obviously I did away with that. I think now it's enough to require micro. And at this point, there's no army to defend this natural base, so Keyan should, in response, try to take one of his own again, normally, the ones that are closer. Especially since as soon as this gets confirmed, you know it's probably on slim work there, right? So, has evacuated a couple of scribes. We got Mystery with a bold suggestion coming. He wants to be able to lift the Nexus. I already can tell. Yeah, I knew it. Yeah, that's exactly what I suspected. All right, well, Keyan will try to take this base, but again, he's not taking one of the more defensible locations, and his army is not currently really able to do too much there. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's going to be doing. He obviously has to consolidate a lot of his forces. He can maybe use the Panoptises to pick off things like the Cantavises, maybe challenge the Atriuses based on their damage, right? But if they're stacked up, the Atriuses will obviously hit pretty hard. And yeah, at this point, it's pretty rough, right? So he has to cancel that base. He has to maybe think about taking these more conventional ones. You know, Solstice isn't like stretching out amazingly. He does have a base over there. And another Panoptis on the way. So still has the land effect from before. Obviously pretty solid against vassal spam, but that's not really what's coming out of here anyway. And the Atreus itself, a couple of them. More than a couple, actually. So there's a pretty big, high-powered army here. Another gateway going down and try to produce more Draconans. I'm kind of surprised he even has the eco floated to do that, but I suppose that's what happens when you can't expand, right? So at this point, eventually, right, Solstice will stretch out ahead. Neither of these players are saturating their bases too effectively. Keyan's is slightly more saturated, I think. For a general rule, you want 2 times the mineral count, plus maybe 1 or 2 more, depending on... I mean, the calculus is at least 2 times the mineral count. Atreus is just going to walk in here and die, so a little bit of a gift for Keyan, but it might bait him into the rest of them, which is an advanced strategy that I was not suspecting. Actually, a double pincer maneuver on the top, and the Panoptises had only just left, and they are currently wreaking havoc on Solstice's base. But again, Keyan has no other base, and that is quite unlike the situation for Solstice. So he's actually going to maybe stake his claim. If he can escape with the envoy, he cannot. So I think it's quite likely, actually, that Solstice takes the dub here, purely because he will kill the factories before Keyan can kill... basically Keyan's going to lose all of his factories before all of Solstice's ones go down. I'm not sure if they're even aware of that defeat condition, but of course, at this point, maybe he can escape with the scribes. Probably not. Yeah, they're just going to get popped. That's probably going to be GG, but I think Keyan will stick this one out to the bitter end. He has no idea how many production structures are actually out there on the map, and so that Nexus is going to go down, and Solstice will be the victor in his first ever debut. Protoss versus Protoss, a Tismic exchange. GG. So I really wasn't expecting the cannon drop. I wasn't expecting the land effectism to be as successful as it was. I think maybe that is a hidden meta that people haven't figured out. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how these two players evolve their Protoss strategies. I think when you're up against a player whose race you are actually aware of, I'm always playing random, so people don't have this luxury against me, then you can probably develop a bit of a different strategy. But I hope you guys enjoyed the silliness that was this best of 3 series, and I also hope you enjoyed Excelsior. I think when you actually play on those horizontal spawns, it's a lot more balanced, but maybe after changing up some of the spawns and changing up where things are, things will get a little bit better and the map will get better as well. So bear with us as we continue to operate, and I will see y'all very soon. Thanks for joining this cast over, and goodbye.